All right, my name is Rich Schmidt. We're here with Julia Coney. It's July 28th, 2024, and we're at Linfield University in McMinnville. Julia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
First question is why wine?
Why not? It's funny, wine is my third career. And I used to be a legal assistant, and I always now say lawyers drink the best. It's the way they have their grown-up pissing contest party. And my family doesn't drink. I'm from Houston. I was born in Louisiana, so I come from a very Southern church kind of background. They might dabble here with a beer, but wine was not on the table. I studied abroad in France in school, and it still wasn't on the table because when you're a broke student, wine is cheaper in France than having a soda. But I didn't think about wine as like a life. It was just like something to eat and drink, when you're a student. And 26 years old, one of the attorneys I worked for had a barbecue at his house, and I was drinking margaritas. Margaritas are like, I love a good Texas margarita from a machine like a slush. And he invited me to his house because he had just gotten back from Napa. And it was so many boxes at the office. And I was like, I can't get to my desk. Why do we have all these boxes? And he said, I'm doing a barbecue for the firm. Come to the house, really small, tiny law firm, because I thought I was going to law school. God had other plans. Thank God I didn't. No, I like lawyers, but I'm glad I didn't. And literally, he started pulling out Caymus and Clos d'Aval and all these big wines, and we were eating ribs and brisket and pork sandwiches and corn. And I was like, well, this tastes like cherries. How did they get the cherries in the wine? I don't understand what's going on. And I had never had wine. I like this, where I kind of was like, this is different than my college drinking days. And he just sat there and just like, okay, taste this, drink this, taste this. And I said, I might need to go to this Napa place, and just learn and discover. And he said, well, have you ever heard of a writer named Dorothy Gator? And I said, no. He said, well, her and her husband, John Brescher, write a column in the Wall Street Journal called Tastings. And every Monday, he started bringing me their section of the paper to read. And I mean, this wasn't the internet. We didn't have a map on the phone. So he was telling me how to get from SFO to Napa, drawing it on a legal pad. And I said, okay. And I started going to Napa then. And a lot of people who are listening to this will be shocked, but Napa didn't have paid tastings. It was like a knock on the door, I was told to come taste here. Somebody bought wine from here, and I was just blown away. And the next year, I was like, well, if Napa's doing this and they're inspired by Bordeaux, I need to go to Bordeaux. And my family is like, what? Who are you? What is going on? And I say, I don't know, but I never thought about it as a career. I just enjoyed wine. I enjoyed food. And, being from Houston has some of the best food. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to Bordeaux. And I was very adventurous and young. And I did a bike trip through Bordeaux. And 2 days into it, I was like, I'm done with this bike stuff. Okay, just drink. Because I'm going to be on the side of the road. And they were like, yeah, we just put your bike in a van. And back then, you could go to the Lynch Bodges, the Petruses, all over, Chateau Smith, Holyfield. You're bouncing one day in Saint-Emilion, the next day you're in the Medoc, and I'm just drinking all this and buying it, and I'm just enamored. I'm curious, and I'm going to the library to research wine because we didn't have anybody to pull from, and I never questioned when I went to the restaurant. Okay, this guy's a somm. I knew the name, but I just knew he was coming to the table, asking what I was eating and what I wanted to drink. And eventually I made my way to DC. And going to DC from Houston, we get so many different wines on the East Coast. A lot of wines, come into Texas, but you get a lot of European style wines. So I was drinking Bordeaux's and Burgundies at a time that I still couldn't appreciate because I was still very much learning. And in DC, I was working a lot. I was working in technology, so working on semiconductor chips and what we now have are iPhones, traveling to Asia all the time. But then, you see this Asian culture with food and wine. And during that time, I started a beauty blog in 2006. And my life changed because I liked my law firm job and I liked this beauty job. And I said, oh, this is a lot of fun. And I was in publications. And then I started freelancing for magazines and beauty. And in 2010, I was like, I think I want to try this full time. And I left my law firm job to be a freelance beauty writer. And I was still going to wine regions. I'm girls' trips to Tuscany. We're all at the vineyards. And I never thought about it as a job. And then I kept reading Dorothy and John's columns, following them along. And in 2015, the end of the year, I was like, I don't think I want to be a beauty writer anymore. And I'm 43. I'm married at the time, and my husband's like, so you're going to switch careers again? And I said, I think I want to do this wine writing thing. He's like, what? And I said, yeah, but I need formal training. So I went to Capital Wine School, and I was like, I need to take, my WSET 1. And the guy who runs it said, stop, just go straight into 2. You have enough knowledge, and you've been to more wine regions than most people have ever seen in their life. And I said, okay. And I started my WSET trajectory of wine. And I cold emailed Dorothy Gator and said, I want to be a wine writer. I'm going to start as a wine blogger. Can you have time to mentor me? And she said, yeah. And it was like, oh my God. And I had never met her in person. Had never met her in person. And so I just started my blog, and it was a different experience because I'm now coming into the wine as a different person, not the person who is like just drinking, but I'm so curious. I'm taking all the classes. And I thought then, I was like, oh, wine is for me, it's so great. And then I was like, well, wine is actually kind of fucking racist. Like, it's a lot of shit going on. Like, no. And I was like, okay, I can complain about it. Like my mother would say, you can complain or be a change. Because complaining is doing nothing but helping anyone else. It's not helping you, it's not helping anyone else. So I said, well, I'm going to start being an advocate and talking about the issues, but I'm not leaving the industry. Because I was meeting people who said it was too hard, it was too this. I got out of the industry, and I was like, well, nah, I'm going to change it. I'm going to work with the people who want to see a difference because they're out there. And if you don't want to see a difference, then I'm good. You can stay over here because the rest of us are moving along and we're doing a great job and we're coming together because wine is the most communal beverage you could ever have. When you sit at a table having wine with people, it's like, yeah, I'm a stranger, but then I become friend and then we become family. That's what wine does. It's a different type of, like, you're not drinking wine. Well, some people do just to drink it, but it's the communal aspect. It's the learning of it. It's the history, the geography, the beauty. And I was like, I want all of us to get along and kind of like Lou Rawls' song, I just want to drink wine and eat with groovy people. Everybody else, y'all can keep that nonsense over there. I don't want to deal with that. And so I decided to start writing about some of the issues in the industry and talking about it. And, this was pre-2020. This is like, but I was like, I'm going to hold this mantle. And when anyone needs help, when anyone needs a listening voice, when anyone needs a backer, y'all come to me. And that's how I actually got known really more by having this voice as much as writing. And I was like, I'm not going to write the woe is me, just the black stories. I'm going to write the stories of what wine means to me. And so it's about the wine, and making it fun because, when you study wine, and you study pairings, it's all kind of very Eurocentric, which is, look, I love France, I love foie gras, I love all that stuff too. That's not how we eat. Most people, like we all sometimes go through a drive-through, it comes in a paper bag, and we go home. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go and start getting all fast food, getting snacks, go to the dollar store, buying a little bag, and how do I pair these epic wines with this kind of lowbrow food? And it was before everybody was like, oh, champagne and chicken, fried chicken, right? No. That's great too. But can we get this with a Dorito, nacho cheese? Okay, what Riesling goes with some salt and vinegar chips? Because that's how we normally eat. Like, I don't eat caviar every day. I love it. I wish I could, but I can't. I can't afford it, so I don't, right? But if I can have my Lay's potato chips, if I can have my Doritos as a snack as I'm preparing dinner, and then talking about that and introducing people to what you like and what you like to eat, let's find a wine for that. Mm-hmm. And so my job, I work with Wine Unify as a mentor. I have black wine professionals. I work, if Hispanics in wine, if somebody needs a job, I'm trying to match people up. Okay, you got somebody needs something, people come to me. I'm always trying to find and help somebody because the industry is stronger when we work together. And, I know now, everybody's like doom and gloom. Oh, my God, young people not drinking wine, young people. I'm like, yeah, they are. But they might not be drinking wine with what you think they want to eat, right? Like here, I'm from the South. One of my favorite things is Jack in the Box 2 for 99-cent tacos and Blanc de Noir champagne. I'm going to do that. And it's not fancy, right? But that's how we live. Some days it's steak and some days it's tacos. And I don't mean fancy tacos. I mean cheap
Check in
tacos.
the box
Like, yeah.
tacos.
Like, what foods can go with that Taco Bell pizza? What wine can we do and add that? That's what we're doing. So for me, wine is a connector. And so it's how do I keep a connection? How do I facilitate the connection? How do I grow the connection? How do I help people who, like me, on your third career, I started wine, I was 43. A lot of people are like, oh, really? You're going to do this? Really? Yeah. I get one life. And if I don't like it, I can figure out something else. It's kind of worked so far. So, been pretty good. And so for me, you have one of the things I like to tell people as we talk the industry, all new drinkers aren't young. A new drinker is a new drinker. Doesn't matter the age. I'm here like with my cousin who up until 2 days ago had never had a Chardonnay, had never had a Pinot Noir. And now she's like, which wine club can I join? And I'm like, what? What? And she's like, yeah, I really like this wine. And she's taking notes and photos, and she's a new wine drinker. So my job is how do I introduce people to wine? How do I make them also fall in love with it again? Because sometimes when you work in it, it becomes a burden, right? And sometimes, like, even me, like, oh, it's a lot, it's like a lot of moving parts. And I don't feel people are pulling on me. I feel they know that I have that rope and I'm going to hold on with you. So it's not you're pulling me away, we're pulling each other together. And so I still am that student, right? I'm still in awe. You pour a glass of wine, you put your nose in it, you're like, oh, man. And you could just go. There's no other beverage does that. There's no other beverage does that, right? And how do we keep that going? How do we keep it going, not just for the next generation, for our current generation, right? How do we keep everybody engaged, alive, evolved into this beverage we love of choice, right? And to me, that's why I tell people, okay, let's get our spirit drinkers over here. Let's get our beer drinkers. Let's get our soda people. Let's get everybody over here. And there's a wine for everyone. But I think sometimes a lot of people feel there's not a wine for them because marketing, right? Marketing doesn't work. It doesn't look like, there's nothing sexy about a bottle shot, right? It's really not. You look on social, nothing sexy. But everybody can relate if you have a snack, because everybody likes a snack. That's the universal connector, and that's why I always talk about wine and snacks and food pairings because of that. And so to me, that's what conversations and discussions on any topic can happen, because everybody's just sitting there and we're enjoying it. And it's kind of like that, wine can be that deep breath, like, I'm here, I'm having a glass, and I'm enjoying that. And whether you have one glass or two glass, how do I help sell wine? At the end of the day, my job is to sell wine. I tell people all that. How can I help you sell your wine? So that's why I talk about we don't buy bottles, we buy cases. Nobody needs a bottle. Everybody needs a case, right? And so when I think about wine in that way, and I'm from the South, so for me it's always like this Southern hospitality. And that's what I found when I first came to Oregon. I came to Oregon for IPNC as a media guest in 2018. And I was like, I heard the sayings, Portland's so white. You hear it. It is what it is. But I felt like I was in the South. I felt like I was in Louisiana, and everybody's like, hey, how you doing? Oh, you came out. And I was like, oh, this is different. This is a little different, because it was so authentic that it shocked me, because I wasn't used to that level of Southern hospitality out West. And then now it's just like, y'all can't get rid of me in Oregon. I'm literally about to join Women in Wine Oregon, and my husband's like, you don't even live there. I'm like, I don't care. I care about Oregon, right? I care about Oregon, and he makes the joke, we're not moving to Oregon. You do not need an apartment in McMinnville. I'm like, I have a Zillow of I look at like real estate in Dundee. He's like, you're not moving there. That is not happening. And I'm like, yeah, but I need to come out a little more and a little more. And I'm actually thinking about doing an Oregon wine certification because I love it that much. I'm invested in what new AVAs are popping up. I love the history of it. When I first came, the first person I was at a dinner with was David Adelsheim. And when you have that, and and I meet the other people, the people from Sokol and Irie and all that in this great history, they all talk about connection. That's the one. It's never about the wine. The wine is there, we know it, but it's talking about a community and a connection and camaraderie, and then you also feel that spirit in the wine. So yeah, U.S. is like the wild, wild west. We don't have the same laws as other countries to make wine. But out here, it's a spark. Mm-hmm. It's a spark out here in Oregon. So that's why I'm here. And y'all can't get rid of me. Y'all cannot get rid of me. Like, it's done.
It's only your husband standing in the way at this point.
Only the husband, but yeah. Come see, come see. He'll come around. Yeah, it's like I land and my spirit just goes calm. Mm-hmm. Like it's the water, it's the trees, it's the green. You drive through and then you go and everybody's just fun. Mm-hmm. They make you feel welcome. Mm-hmm. So there's always a place for a wine drinker in Oregon.
Right, a lot to catch up on there. I'm going to back up for a second, though. I'll talk about life before wine. You mentioned third career. Tell me about, you mentioned being born in Louisiana, raised in Houston. Tell me about kind of early life before heading to college.
Oh, okay. I'm the youngest and the only girl of 4 older brothers. My dad was a U.S. Marshal. My mom was a teacher. Very lively family, very loud Southern family. Texas football, sports, all that kind of stuff. But my parents didn't drink. Right, but I had a great childhood. I would do it over 10 times if I could. I just one of those kids, avid reader. My parents just encourage you to speak your mind, do whatever you need to do, to be happy, And growing up, it was, find a job, and then 65 you retire, then you get to do what you want. That changed in my 20s. I'm like, I don't know if I could do this for another 40 years like this. Like, oh gosh, no. But I had a great childhood. Family I was born into the best family. I always like to say sometimes in the wrong country. In my mind, I am French. I'm a Francophile. I like 2 to 3 hour lunches, very long dinners, things a lot slow. Very slow. I like moving slow at times. And I talk fast, but I like to let's linger, la, la, la. I wish things were closed again on Sundays like they do in this family time. Sunday suppers every week, family reunions every summer. You go to family reunion, then you go to camp, then you go to grandma's house, and then you go back to school. That was the early life, and I wouldn't change it for anything. Yeah.
So tell me about how law became something you were interested in.
Matlock. I grew up with Matlock and Bonnie. I think Rose, Russell, it was Barnaby Jones, all those kind of, my dad was a cop, and he used to say, you're a talking piece of furniture, just move Julia around. She'll talk to anybody. And I was like, and what did lawyers do? Talk, right? So I was like, I'm gonna go to law school, and I kept putting it off after graduating from college. I kept not wanting to apply. And then when I finally applied, I started getting waitlisted, and then I deferred. And then my mom was like, you really need to think, do you want to go if you really are putting it all off like that? What do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. I like working for lawyers. I don't know if I want to be one, right? And it wasn't like I had a bad experience like some people. I loved my job. I didn't want to leave my legal assistant job. It wasn't one of those like I hated it. It was more of, okay, let me move to D.C. because I was working with the court in D.C. from Houston. And I had never lived anywhere but Houston, right? And I was like, I want to move to the East Coast. I went to New York and was like, no. These apartments are too little and very expensive. And so I went to DC, and I had a great time. And it wasn't until I was like, okay, I'm going to dabble in writing, because I always had a journal. Always had a book. And I went to a writing workshop. And an author there asked me, what did I do for my skin? And I said, I fly to Paris every year and get a facial. And she was like, what? I'm a beauty editor and don't do these things. Her name is Tia Williams. We're still good friends. And she's a top New York Times bestselling author now. And she's like, I think you should write a blog and tell about this stuff, because you work for these lawyers, and then you're in Japan, and you're in Tokyo, and you're telling me about the dumplings in Taiwan, and you're telling me about the snail facial that they put, like literally a snail on your, It was no sheet mask thing back then. And I said, okay. And I started a blog, and I never knew that blog would change my life. And it became, people started following me, then magazines asked me to write, and then I was going to Fashion Week to cover backstage. And it was like all so crazy, and I started meeting these other women, and we all had jobs. So no one was like doing this full time. We were all like, this is a hobby. And at one point, I was working 60 hours at the law firm, 50 hours on the blog, and everything was converging, and I had to make a decision. And it was really, really hard because I loved my job. I really loved my job. And I said, well, I'm going to give it a year. And that was 2010. Here we are.
So that's obviously a big change. And you mentioned you kind of put yourself out there at that point. You go from being kind of behind the scenes legal assistant to being a face and being a name and having people follow you. So tell me about that transition for you and becoming someone who's known to other people in that way.
It's very weird. It's very weird, right? But my mom she was living at the time. She passed away in 2018, and she's like, "You are called for a purpose, and we're blessed to be a blessing. And whatever that means for you, you need to figure it out. And if that means your face has to be out there," she was like, "why not you?" And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't like to do it. And like, I always tell people social media is the blessing and the curse. It's like, I want to just show you the food and the camaraderie, but my face, don't want to do that. But it was more of, even in beauty, do I want to leave it better than I found it? In wine, do I want to leave it better than I found it? And to me, that is the calling. And you know, I do believe sometimes God gives you that push and that nudge, and it doesn't mean it's going to be pretty. It doesn't mean it's always going to be fun. But to me, I just wasn't put here to drink wine. I just wasn't put here to talk about wine and sell wine. I was put here to change wine and to change someone's life and to help them become who they're supposed to be. Because everybody doesn't have a family like mine that is very supportive, that understands, right? Like, I was changing jobs, like careers, my family, like, oh, that's great. Like, oh, do it, you can do it. But everybody doesn't have that, right? And so when people like, oh, well, you know, my family and my friends don't get it, I'm like, you got me. And, you know, I'm that person. I will be that advocate for you. And it goes back to my childhood. My parents advocated for others, and I watched that. I watched that happen. You know, I remember when we turned 18 in our house, on your birthday card, you got a voter registration card, and my parents made you fill it out, and we dropped it off on your 18th birthday because you would do your civic duty as you're supposed to. And, you know, I saw them do it. I saw them every election go and stand in front of poll and gallivanting, you know, bringing people together and saying, hey, you know, we're going to do this because somebody died for you to do this. So if you can have a voice and you could change somebody's life, why not do it? So I get it from them, and still to this day, you know, I'm a caregiver for my 82-year-old aunt, and she volunteers with kids after school. Like, you know, she's signing people up to vote at 82. And I'm like, girl, you're retired. What are you doing? But she's like, I have to do it. We have to. And so for me, like, wine is that, right? Wine is that for a lot of people. You know, there's you know, people look at wine as glamorous. I'm like, a lot of it is a lot. But it's also a lot of hardworking people. It's a lot of also, you know, people who want to do better, this is their life calling, to work in this industry and to be a part of this industry. But a lot of them don't know how. It's a lot easier now, right? We can see other people doing it. Because I believe you can become it if you see it, right? I think, like, even with like the job with American Airlines, right? I mean, I'm the first Black woman to run a wine program for an airline. I won't be the last. And that's the point. The point is me not do it forever. The point is to bring somebody else along, right? And they get to have those opportunities, those experiences, and taking something that is so a soul of a person, you know, somebody making a wine, and your job is to bring it to the masses, to expound and how much you love it and so cool with it. So for me, if they could see me doing it, and they could ask me like, hey, I want to do wine, but I don't know where to start. And I always say, find what region you like. That's where you start. You start, know that region, know that grape, know what's going on over there, know the laws, all that. And a lot of that now is available, you know, so readily, right? Go to the festival over there. Oh, I want to go by myself. Those people don't care about you. Go. You're going to meet a friend. You're going to sit next to somebody. You're going to have a good time, right? And that's how I like to be a mentor. It's like to be encouraging, letting people know that this place is for you. And also it's hard. Like, I think, you know, wine looks so frivolous and joyful a lot of time. It is, but it's also a business, right? At the end of the day, it's a business. So how do we keep that going? How do we make you a part of it?
So you talked about how excited you were learning wine and getting to a point where you realized the industry wasn't necessarily designed for you, wasn't welcoming to you perhaps in the way. Tell me about confronting that and deciding your role in changing the industry.
So I remember going to a trade tasting in DC, and a guy asked me where the restroom was. And I said, how would I know? He said, you look like the help. This is 2017. So it's 2017. And I was I was furious. And I was like, okay, calm down. We don't need to go to jail. I was just, oh my God. And then it was just every few weeks, something was being said. Every 3 weeks, I would be in a tasting, and I would never forget, I was in an Argentina tasting, and I had just been to Mendoza. So the winemaker was there, and the guy goes, oh, so you've been to like Argentina? And I'm like, is there another Argentina that I missed? Because the winemaker and I were just laughing and talking, because I literally was just at his winery 2 months before this tasting. And I was telling my mom about it. She's like, well, you got a blog. Won't you write about the issues? Because I'm tired of hearing it. And I said, well, and she said, let's be very clear. We need white people to help change this industry. And if they don't really realize what is going on, because they just, for whatever reason, don't realize, how are they going to know how to help? And I said, okay. And it took me a few months to kind of get the idea of writing something, talking about my feelings. So it was January 2018, and I wrote a blog post called My Wine Glass Ceiling is Your Wine Glass Box, an open letter to the wine industry on their racism. And I tagged all the people that I knew in wine on Facebook and Twitter, and I shut my computer down. I was like, I'm done, I did it. My mother read it, English teacher. She was like, because when I first did the first draft, she said, oh, you just sound so angry, like just so angry. Juliet, use your words. Use your words. And I said, okay. And I wrote it, and we talked about it, and I let it go. The next day, my life changed. I woke up, and it had been reposted by Wine Business Monthly. And it was my email was, and I was like, holy shit, what did I do? Because now it was like, people was like, okay, how can I help? Well, like, it shed a light of things that were happening and looking at behavior. And I said, okay, like, now I'm in it, right? And I did it, and I said it. And now it is like, okay, we're working together on this. Working together. From, let's talk about your tasting room culture. Let's talk about when people walk into your tasting room, do they feel welcome? Do they feel like they're being stared at? Do people think they don't know wine? Those are the little things, the microaggressions that go into wine. And there's sometimes the blatant racism that actually goes into wine. And also, too, it's so much wine out here, we don't have to drink wine from assholes. I don't drink wine from assholes. I don't. I can find wine everywhere, right? And so that became, and the people that wanted to work with me in that year, Michelle Kaufman from Stoller says, you're coming to IPNC as my media guest. And I didn't know what IPNC was. I was like, okay, I'm going to Oregon. And I got here, and I came a little early to the Willamette Valley, and I was bouncing tasting, and I said, oh, these are my people. Like, I knew it like when I was like down tasting in Dundee, and I was like, these are my people. I get it. And I felt so like, these are the people who want to work with me. These are the people, right? And there was people in California, wine industry. It was people in France, Italy, like, okay, how do we do this? How do we bring more people into this? And I'm like, but once we in it, how are you supporting us as we get in it? Because I can bring you to the water, but how are we gonna keep it going, right? And they were like, tell me what to do. I don't know. And a lot of times I was like, I don't know either, girl, but we gonna figure it out. And that's what it is, right? So that to me is why when I talk about it and that moment changed my life, I know it was gonna change somebody else. And a lot of people who were in the industry that looked like me were like, thank you for saying it, because you took a direct hit. Like, you didn't have to say it. And we know it's happening, but thank you. And I said, well, yeah, if I'm just entering it and you've been here years, my goodness, I can't even imagine. And I don't want to, and I'm not. So that's when that happened. It became like part mission, part change. It's not just color, it's, people, sexual orientation, making them feel welcome, women, where they can go into a place and, they're not objectified. And also because I don't want young women, and also too, it's being an older person in wine. I'm not one of those people like, oh, well, I went through it, you need to go through it. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. My job is so you never have to go through it. I'm going through it so you never have to go through it. You always know that you could come to me and say, oh, no, we're not, don't, and I don't like those women. I don't want to be part of that group that's like, well, I was through the trenches. No, we're not doing this for this next generation. That's bad behavior, that's trauma. We're not going there. We're going to bring everybody along, and the older people, it's not just mentoring the young people, we're supporting them. And it's like my dad used to say, I can still love you, I just don't like your music. It's the same, right? Because you get a lot of that. You get like, well, I had to go through it. We went through it so they don't have to. And so for everything I do, I always think about who's coming after me, like in whatever way they need. It's hard at times because sometimes I just want to like lay on the floor and like, ah, but I don't. I just, I yell and scream and I go roller skating and get it out my system, listen to some Usher and Beyonce, and then I get back and I wake up the next day, I'm like, okay, we can do this. We're going to do this. Yeah.
So tell me about that initial letter. What were the things, I guess, what were the biggest things you wanted to see change? What were the biggest issues at that point or biggest obstacles at that point? And what was the initial feedback you got?
The initial feedback, a lot of people like, we're not like this. But what I did, and I did a bullet point of how things happen. I was like, okay, I work for enough lawyers, bullet points matter. And just, I went to interview a winemaker and he came out and told me, he was like, oh, I didn't expect you to be black. And I said, well, I didn't expect you to be an asshole, but here we are. Like, because he wasn't, he was looking for the wine writer and he didn't know me. So initially it was some resistance, but the majority was like, what can we do? What can we do? What help us? And I was like, let's start. That's why I believe in tasting room culture. The majority of people come to a winery through a tasting room. That's their first experience. They've been drinking it at home, and then they decide to visit a wine region, and the first place they go is a tasting room. How you make them feel? Is everybody like all stuck up? No one wants to drink wine like that. Are they isolated? Are they like not with the group? Or they're waiting for their tasting? It's the microaggressions, the little things that, because when you think about a lot of wine, we don't think about people of color. We just don't. We're 2% of the wine industry. But we're big consumers. We spend a lot of money. And at the end of the day, the color we need to worry about is green. So how are we getting these people and making them feel welcome and bringing them in? And, a lot of times I will always say, people ask me where, I want to go to a wine region, where will I go first? I say, you need to go to Oregon. And they're like, really? Hands down, Oregon first. And they're like, I said, I've been to a lot of tasting rooms in a lot of parts of California. It's not always that easy. It is now because people recognize me. But we're talking about people who are not recognized. They don't know them. They just going, I want to go taste here. And I always tell them, go to Oregon. And once you come to Oregon, you see when you go to other places, you're like, yeah, nah, I don't have to spend my money here. I'm like, no. It's true. And that's the thing, right? I think about when I first came, it wasn't, yes, IPNC, but I spent 3 days just driving up this highway, going to tasting rooms. And every place I go, I was like, my God, I need to be a millionaire because they're so nice. I just want to buy all the wines. And I'm like, I'm not, right? But I felt that Southern hospitality. I felt that warmth. And that's what everybody, it's the Maya Angelou quote. People will never forget how you made them feel. That's it. You can say whatever you want to say, but they will remember how you made them feel. And to me, that's how I feel when I'm here.
So coming out of that, you have changes you want to see made. You want to be part of. You have people who want to help. Tell me about what your next steps were at that point. How do you confront something when it's like you have all these people who want to help and you're not exactly sure what to do? What were the steps you took that year?
I took a lot of training. I did a DEI training. I did a lot of training on communication, adversity communication. They're out there like Cornell and different places. So I did a lot of training just for myself on how to communicate it because my natural personality is to go nuclear. It really is. It really is to go just curse everybody out. That's my natural personality. And I was like, that can't be done. You can't do that. So I took a lot of classes on really like constructive criticism and worked with like people like that do human resources, different courses, especially in DC. You know, DC has all these kind of institutes that do those kind of like weekend workshops and everything. So in order for me to communicate effectively on what I needed to see done.
And what then from that, obviously you started things like Black Wine Professionals. So tell me how those kind of things started at the gestation of those and how they got started.
Well, Black Wine Professionals started after the murder of George Floyd. And I would be out, media trips, let's start on those.
Okay.
So a region hires somebody, you know, they'll send 8 to 9 writers to a lot of regions. And I found myself getting asked to be on all these trips. And I would go on some and I'd be the only Black person. And a lot of times people would say, well, we just don't need any more Black wine people. And I kept hearing that, right? And then I started turning down the trips and giving them a list. So when everything happened with George Floyd, I was like, so how do I create this database of people who are winemakers, somms, podcasters, writers, so no one says they can't find a person to be quoted in an article that's Black. Like, you can't give me an excuse now, because I gave you a whole list and it's free. I didn't even put it behind a paywall. Like, it's just there for you. It's just a resource. So that way, they're quoted in articles. They're actually in the article as an authority. Because, you know, you read a wine magazine and you have different people and everything, and I'm like, I know somebody could have did that. I know a wine director at a really nice restaurant. I know this top somm here. I know a Black person who works in distribution. I know one that's in sales. But they were never getting this like shine, right? And so that's why I created it. And it was working with like, you know, hey, people like just different importers like, hey, I'm so thankful for your thing. I went on the website and I actually need somebody in sales. I found people in sales, let them know we have an opening. So it's little things like that, is being able to email the listserv and go, hey, these are the open jobs that are happening in this area. If you guys fit it, just here's the link to apply. That's how I create change. You know, I'm giving it to you right there. And then, you know, some people, you know, they're like, I need a mentor. And I'm like, okay, I don't mentor forever. I tell you, what are we doing? Like, what do you want to do? And we talk on the phone, we make time, you know, we Zoom, you know, if you text, if you're stressed, you know, what to do, you know, what kind of way you want to see yourself. Some things you do may not stick. It's okay. It's okay to keep, because there's so many paths in the business. So it's helping people understand there's different aspects of the business. Like if you like graphic design, people make labels, people do websites. Maybe they're looking for a web designer. So all those things, and sometimes I may hear about them because I'm just on that list of like winejobs.com, right? They might not be on it. So I'm like, hey, I think you might be a good fit. I saw this job. And I know most of the people on the list. So I'm always like trying to advocate. And then like even people who work with, like there's Hispanics in wine, right? I'm like, hey, I think there's an opening because I may have met someone. You might be a good fit. So it's not just, it's a list, yes, there's Black wine professionals, but in my mind, if I know somebody that I've met, a young person that I think has that get up and going, hey, here's a job for you. And you don't have to be Black. I'm just like, this is for you. I'll write a letter for you. Help you write a letter. Let's do it. And people, and I'm happy to know that it's been working. Yeah. You know, you need a letter, like one of those. I'm like, yeah, what are we doing? I'll give you the letter. You may have to like bug me like 2 times, like you get the letter out, but I'll get it to you in time. And so I think about that, you know, that's leaving it better.
And you mentioned Wine Unify. Tell me about Wine Unify.
So Wine Unify was started with Alicia Towns Franken, who I look up to so much, Mary Margaret, and D-Lynn Proctor. And they started out of California, and they provide scholarships, like level 1, level 2, level 3, WSET, and they match mentees with mentors, right? And usually I know people who want to be writers and storytellers, right? Maybe that's a storytelling through social media. Maybe that's content creation. So I talk with them and I just mentor them for that section. Like, maybe you should do this. And I hear their personality and what they like. Okay, maybe you should talk about wine and music, wine and theater, wine and films. I don't know, wine and puppies. Whatever floats your boat, we can get it out there. So I like that they match me with someone that I can actually like, okay, hey, have this. Like, why don't you do this? Oh, this person is looking for an intro writer. Here's the editor's name. So that is good. Let me see what you're pitching first. I'll go through with edits for you, and then we can pitch it. And then copy me on the email so that at least they know, hey, Julia's on the email, so she's not gonna okay somebody without like doing the work. So that's what it benefits as well.
So tell me about the changes you've seen. Tell me about the progress you've seen.
Oh my God, it's 100%. I mean, it is absolutely amazing to see, because not only you have like us in like social media and the jobs, but now everybody's connected. Like when they, if you look at Wine Enthusiasts, top 40 under 40, the 40, it's got a lot of color now. It has a lot of color, and it always didn't have that, right? And that is like, you can already see that there are people like, they were like, we're doing that change, right? We're working. Or even like VinePair, when I was a contributing editor, I was bringing in new voices for writing, that kind of stuff. And they still have that there, 750. So on the writing side, but then also you see more people in the WSET classes, people signing up, the CMS courses, they're signing up, and they're like, okay, they're looking at ways also to be different Psalms, right? They're reading in like the New York Times, when like Eric did a thing on how Psalms are changing the business. They see themselves because they're in the article. And they're looking up to those people like I look up to them, right? And so for me, it's coming around, and I'm seeing, and I'm like, I see Psalms pouring here, right? I see, an event, I'm like, they're pouring at the top events in wine all over the world. I mean, I love seeing like Jermaine Stone doing a wine and hip hop thing in Burgundy. And I'm like, the dates never match up for me, Jermaine. They never match up. And he's been doing that a very long time. So it's beautiful to see his shine, his TV show, and all that's happening. And I tell people, just look around. You actually can see it now. And you can actually change. It's changing faster, more rapidly than it did. And that is a lot of confluence, right? It's me, it's a lot of other people. It's 2020. And people are like, these diverse voices are bringing in a new audience. And that new audience is buying wine, and that's what we want. We want that. And so people can find who they can connect to, right, in wine. And that is the beauty of it. So it's been a vast change very quickly, thank goodness. Doesn't mean we don't need to have a long way to go still, but yeah.
So talk about the writing for a little bit. Obviously, you've written about wine for a lot of people, a lot of different things. Tell me about the approach you take to writing about wine. What excites you? What do you find interesting to write about? And what is the takeaway you want people to have from your writing?
So, at first when I got it, I was like, oh, I need to be published. Everybody wants to see their name in print. I don't care what anybody says. You want to see your name in print, right? I got all that. And then a year ago, I said, how do I reach people, right? I'm on social media, and somebody may see it, might not. And I started a newsletter. And I just write about one wine a week, a wine you should be drinking. And that's it. I don't write tasting notes. My pairing is all, like I told you, snacks. But it is really, I had this wine, and I think you would like it too. And it's just that simple, right? Because they can really say, hey, I read about this wine. I can try to find it in my local store or something near it. And then I get the DMs, you're right. I didn't think I liked white wine. I didn't think I liked this. You wrote about Albarino. I didn't think I would like it. And I went and I found one and I actually like it. That means you might try another one, right? And that may move you to another grape and maybe move you to a different region. So for me, it is just consistently putting the thought of wine into people's heads, right? And that's all that matters. And so I write now, and I don't have to be like, does it fit what the magazine says right now for this moment? That's the beauty of a newsletter. It's basically like original blogging. It's going back to say, I want you to drink this, and that's it this week. And that's been a joy because I'm on my own timetable, and sometimes it's one wine and sometimes it's 10. But people are like, oh, okay, great, I'm gonna try it. And so for me, it's getting back to that basic, right? If we think about the community, going back. So I have my community, and I'm like, hey, I travel a lot. These are some of my favorite wine bars. And it's not like the list that somebody made and they had a bad experience. It's really saying, this place has really great wine, you should go. And this is a really great restaurant with a really great list. Ask for this guy at this restaurant. Ask for this lady at this restaurant, right? And they're like, okay, I went there. And the messages I get are what make me so happy. Is because they're like, yeah, I tried this wine. I tried it. And when you hear somebody who may be on the fence, or maybe like, because we all have our preferences. That the one we keep drinking and we buying over and over again. And even here, there was a lady that came by herself. She started WSET classes as a hobby. And she was like, what way do you think I should learn wine? I said, pick one region a month and just drink that one region. That's the way Bob told me. He said, pick one region and just learn all about that region and drink all the things. I said, you're not gonna like everything. You're gonna, pretty much 50-50, you're gonna find something. And she was like, oh my God, thank you. I'm like, that's the easiest way to learn. You're always going to get a bad apple in a wine bottle, right? Sometimes, and also it's a mood thing. I talk a lot of times to people like, oh, I went out of town on vacation and I bought this case of wine and I came home and I didn't like it. And I'm like, you're not on vacation. That's vacation wine. Tastes very different than work wine, email wine. It's very different. So just give yourself some grace on that, right? And I very much encourage people to buy cases of wine. Try it at different times, different seasons, different foods. And so for me, it's just how can I get wine to people in a fun, interesting way. And you're not gonna always like what I choose because I'm going from what I like, right? But you might find something. I'm a big believer in independent wine stores. I worked for one for 5 years and I do encourage mentees to go work at a wine store. You learn really how people drink working at a wine store. You learn how to eat because they see you all the time, right? They might have a Tuesday night wine and then they might have a Friday night wine. And you get to see which ones they have, right? And so the thing with the writing now is writing with joy, writing that if you want to join this wine community, come on, we need you, we want you, we're here for you, but also drink good wine. Yeah, that's really the point.
From your magazine writing days, is there a piece you're particularly proud of or something you look back on and think about a lot?
Okay, so the hardest thing for me in wine is not wearing fragrance. So when I was a beauty writer, I was into luxury skincare and luxury fragrances. And when I came to wine and working, I was reading like the books and I'm like, wait a minute, wait, I can't wear fragrance? Wait, what? And I didn't really understand it, right? I was like, oh, I get it though. If I'm wearing this fragrance and I'm in a tasting, I can't smell any of this wine because I'm smelling like flowers and oud and all these other scents. And it was my very first print piece, and it was for wine enthusiasts. And like, can a perfume lover survive in the wine world? And I wrote about the dilemma of wanting to wear perfume but wanting to taste wine. And the struggle I had, because I realized when I was traveling to France and I was talking skincare, all the perfumers were relating wine and fragrance. Mm-hmm. Very similar, noses, notes, flowers, but I'm like, oh my gosh, but I can't wear it. So that was like my first piece. And so I literally framed that. And so it was a reminder when I am going to a tasting at home, I look at that piece and go, yep, can't wear the fragrance. It's all in your head, girl. You just can't do that. And so for me, that is the one it merged both my worlds. And the crazy thing about that is the more I talk to winemakers, we all talk about that in a way, especially here in Oregon, because Ian Birch from Archery and Kate Payne-Brown from Venovate, we both now all study under Alexander Schmidt, the perfumer turned wine consultant. So we're all like, we do his programs and, do you smell this? Do you not? But it's so very similar. And it let me know then, wine is I call the romance of beverages, right? History, geography, romance, love, hate, all the things that go into it. It's the only beverage like that. It's like, it's kind of like Pinot Noir, it's like the heartbreak grape, right? That's wine. Some days you just love it, and some days, like, if you looking at the weather, like, oh my God, please, Lord, let it be okay, let it be good. And so for me, merging those two worlds is I get to play on my newsletter with that. This wine smells like this, and Olivier Polge, he's a perfumer now for Chanel, introduced me to Runar Champagne and Onique Goutal's Eau de Hadrian fragrance, and it was like I'm in a field in Grasse, and I'm like, yes, this is it. And I'm like, still can't wear fragrance. So it's like, so now my fragrance budget is my wine budget, but it's fine.
Did you find that changed how you approached wines, having a kind of a practiced nose in that way? Did you find that it changed how you approached wine? Did you find yourself drawn more to aroma than other things?
Yes, and it's at that point when you start going in the grocery store and start smelling fruit. You become that person. Oh, cucumber. And people think you're looking for ripeness, and you're just like, actually, no, I'm just smelling it. It changed my approach because there are so many similarities in different industries, very similar to wine, right? And that, I think, helped me be a better smeller, somebody who smells wine. It made it better for me because now I can say, okay, this wine may need to blow off a little longer. Instead of before, I would think the wine was bad, right? Like something's wrong, and not talking about it in terms of reductive or oxidative, more like, okay, this just needs a little more time. This needs to be like this. And so for me, I think it made me a better writer to really see all the different smells, right? I remember smelling a Sauterne one time, and I was like, this smells like my grandmother's pocketbook with a Werther's Original had been in the bag. And somebody was like, oh, that's a great pairing. Because everybody had with a grandma with a Werther's Original, we get it, right? But that's when I started equating different scents to wine, different flavors to wine, the way I needed to relate to people, right? So even though I have formal training and there's the systematic approach to tasting, I rarely use those descriptors. I use descriptors that I think a lot of people can really understand. And so like one of my pet peeves is I never say the word forest floor. I haven't been to the forest, haven't been on the floor of the forest, so why would I ever use that descriptor? I don't go to the forest, so that's not what I would say. I say it can smell like a wet brown paper bag. Most people can identify with that, but that I don't say those. So I had to come up with my own version of descriptors that relate to who I'm talking to. And most people can say, oh my gosh, yes, this smells like a nacho cheese Dorito. This smells like a Cool Ranch Dorito. This smells like a pizza combo. Okay, I can understand because everybody's like Sauvignon Blanc. Oh, gooseberry. I hadn't had a gooseberry till 2017. But I'm studying it, saying this language, and I'm like, I don't know this fruit. So I'm just regurgitating something that's taught, so I stopped saying that, right? And it's different because if I say it smells like mango and you're from the Caribbean, you probably your mangoes are trash in America. This is not a mango. So I can say dried mango because I know most people understand dried mango. So I use terms and descriptors of what people might know. This smells like a Twix bar. Most people hadn't identified with that, right? But I don't use a lot of the formal in my writing because I don't think that brings a lot of people in. I think there's a certain person for that, and I think that maybe a more established wine drinker. I have a lot of newbie wine drinkers that follow me. And so I want to give them what they would know and what I can appreciate as well. So that's why I do that.
So like a jazz approach, you know how to play the music formally, but you're not doing it formally.
Exactly.
You're breaking all the rules.
Exactly. Because we need to break the rules in wine. My gosh. Oh, we need to break the rules. Yeah. And also get back to making wine fun.
Well, you mentioned new drinkers, and that was something you brought up earlier, that not all new drinkers are young drinkers. I like that approach. So tell me about new drinkers who are following you or interested in you, and so tell me, what is the most important thing you try to relate to them, and how do you make it fun? How do you make it approachable? How do you make sure that that they're getting into the part of the industry that you want them to get into, or that there's like an accepting part of the industry for them?
Well, I tell them, I list your hobbies. Go just a notepad. Hobbies, what you like to do, find something in wine that relates. Or whatever transferable skills you have, you can just bring them to the wine industry. You're an accountant. Wineries need accountants. Now you're in the wine industry. And I think because sometimes when we say wine industry, we always think the front-facing part, right? But there's so many moving parts in the back part of the wine industry. So I'm always like, what skill set do you have? What are you already currently doing? You don't have to always be in the front. And a lot of people don't even think about that. They oh, I never thought. I'm like, yeah, you could be in the wine industry. If you're an accountant, just go work for a winery. Do the books. You're in the wine industry. And they're like, oh. I'm like, yeah, you're in the wine industry. So I started asking them about their hobbies. Okay, you do this for work, then what is your hobby? Okay, what's your fun wine? Like, not your bucket list wine. If you wake up every day, that's your bucket list, in my opinion. But what wine that you just want to have fun with? And they tell me a region they travel to somewhere. Okay, let's try. You really like Spain. Let's focus on Spain. What part of Spain? And then get them into that. And I'm like, this is how you find kind of like that path. And that may work for you 1 or 2 years, and then you want to study something else. And that's the beauty of wine. It's so much study and can be, applied to daily life, but also it's vast. And also telling people, no one knows everything about wine. And the minute they tell you to do, run, because they are lying. Everyday wine's changing, every day, but it's always, like I say, it's always a good time. Yeah.
So you talked about American Airlines earlier. Tell me how that came to be.
It's still crazy. It's still, somebody that works with the James Beard Foundation saw me talking about pairings on Instagram. And kind of stuck with her. And she was like, I got an email one day and they were like, would you like to interview? We're looking for a new wine consultant and we think you would be a great choice. And I said, can I train the staff? Because I travel a lot and I'm in a lot of lounges. And I say, I think if we empower the staff, I think it'll be a better lounge experience for the customers. And she was like, oh, that's a great idea. And I was like, if they can see, because somebody will, and you have to think of how a lounge works, right? It works like a restaurant. And for them to say, somebody might say, I don't see a Chardonnay, but it's Chablis right there. So if a person works in the lounge and know that Chablis is Chardonnay, they feel empowered, right? Because when people go into airports and, they lose sense of place, sense of timing, things like, I want this, I want that, and, and I was like, okay, this could be fun. And that's been 3 years now. And it is really fun. I get people tagging me, I'm on the plane, we're having this one. And like my heart, like I'm reposting it because my heart is so happy. And they were like, I made whatever experience they were going through that day better. So, yeah.
So tell me about approaching something like that. It's a big project. So
Yes.
Approaching the wine part of it, approaching the people part of it. How do you approach it? What do you hope to impart?
I think the way I approach it is we taste a lot blind. So that is, and there's planes and then there's lounges, right? And I think about when you're on a plane going somewhere, usually most people are going on vacation. The vacation starts in the airport. It really does. It starts in the airport. So I'm always thinking about it starts in the airport, right? And wherever you're going, then you have that wine and you go on a place. No matter where you're sitting on the plane, the vacation starts there. And I always think about, okay, when I taste wine for economy, I taste it with the pretzels, I taste it with the cookies, and I taste it out of a plastic cup. Because that's what we're all having. And so it makes a great experience. So usually if I travel a lot and I'm on the plane and somebody orders a wine, and if they order the white and they were like, oh, I'm gonna have the pretzels, I'm like, I think you might wanna have the cinnamon cookies with that. And they're like, okay. And I don't tell them that I'm the consultant until the flight's over. And I'm just sitting there and drinking. And usually they ask, like, how do you know about the wine on the plane? I was like, well, I'm the consultant. And they're like, oh, I need another cookie. I need another glass of wine. And it's been really, really fun because I know for me, I am part of somebody's memory, right? And it's also, they change so much that, every quarter that I get to play around with different regions, different styles, always, and it's been a great experience. Yeah.
So before we turn the camera on here, you were talking about your plans for later today and the pairings. So tell us a little about caviar pairings in your mind.
Okay, so I'm one of those kids, and whoever listening, there used to be a commercial on when I was a child, and it was like, give it to Mikey, he'll eat anything, right? It was
Life cereal?
Life cereal. I'm Mikey in my family. Give it to Julia, she'll eat anything. That is and that's from my dad. We always, my dad stuck raw oysters in my face at 5, and I was pounding them down, right? Always but for my mom's birthday, she always liked caviar. Once a year, she'd get her old little tin, and then she would have the little blinis and creme fraiche, and you'd do all that. And then I was home one day, and I was like, these blinis are really trash. They dry little pancakes. this makes no sense. I'm gonna try something better. And I decided to put it on a Lay's potato chip and the caviar, and I had champagne. And I said, oh, this is it. And I went to the dollar store, and I got all little Takis and all salt and vinegar chips and everything. And I said, I'm gonna learn how to pair all these kind of snacky things with wine. And I started doing that on Instagram, and people related to it. And then I started doing the caviar with the Doritos, creme fraiche, or salmon roe. And they were like, okay, this is crazy. And I was like, this is how I snack. So I want to present, like, we think of like fine wine, right? Higher price wine. It's always this meal, right? This beautiful chef made. Look, I love them. I'm all goo goo gaga for them too. That is not my everyday. My everyday is I'm just trying to get through the day, and I'm just trying to eat something at least a little healthy. But before that, I want a snack. So I am always thinking like, I like truffle chips. I like truffle popcorn. Barolo, right? And I find it gives people that moment of, and then they're really relaxed. Because at first they're kind of like, I don't know what's going on here. Why is the Barolo with the chip? I don't understand. Because in their mind, it's such a beautiful wine. And I want people to know that, one, there is no guilty pleasure. There's no guilt and pleasure. So let's throw that out the window. And drink and eat what you like. And that is not always this fancy meal, right? And I am, I'm one of those people. I have fast food once a week. I try to be, I'm not as young as I used to be. So, but I want to know what goes with my Big Mac, Blanc de Noir. I want to know what goes with my Whopper Jr. with onions, with that onion ring sauce, like tied on that, Spot Lazy Riesling. And so I am like, in my mind, and some days it works and some days it doesn't, right? Sometimes I'm like, not so much. But I'm making notes of it. So I'm writing it all down. And the only thing I haven't figured out is Funyuns. Once I figure out Funyuns, I will have it down. I just got to figure out the Funyuns part, right? And so for me, I want to approach wine, and I want you, if you tell me, you know how people are, they got the expensive wine. I don't care, $20 or $200. It's still, we're going to find something to match. We're going to find something to go with it. But I found talking about snacks and fun foods make it way more approachable for people. Because it feels like everybody belongs. Everybody's not into foie gras, but everybody kind of like, a potato chip. And then like last week, I got some Tim's out here. Oh, that's a perfect chip. Got a good crunch. Really, really great, but it was like, salmon roe, right? Whipped cream cheese, not the 100%, like whipped cream cheese and salmon roe on the Tim's. And I was like, this is beyond. This is beyond. And I had it with a sect Riesling. Little sect, little sparkle. I was like, oh, this is good. Yeah.
I love that. It's amazing. You talked about connection, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Wine is connecting. So tell me about seeing those connections build as you've gotten further and further into your wine career, as you've gotten in these roles where you have an influence. Tell me about seeing connections and starting to see people coming into wine that you didn't expect to see coming into wine, or who didn't expect themselves to be into wine.
You know what I love about wine? You could come at any age. There's cutoffs for a lot of careers you got to do. You may not want to do the late nights. I'm so glad that wine actually is my third career, because people who are maybe like retiring, looking for something else, looking for a different quality of life, anything, it just shows you that you can enter wine at any stage in your life, and there's not many careers you can do that. And that's the beauty of it, right? And it can show like it can just take off. You can explore. And even if you don't want to make it a career, you got a lot of people who are really into wine as hobbyists. And it's the same, right? You can start anywhere you want. And I love that, people are like, everybody, some people have a gateway wine, right? And I tell them, I really didn't. Like, my gateway was kind of top. Like, right? I don't have that gateway experience. But if you do, that's even better, because now you can relate to other people, right? It's hard to come in and say, well, my first wine was Clos d'Aval, Cambus. Like, that doesn't really do the same if you like. Mine was like, like Megan said on the panel, hers was Gallo White Merlot, right? everybody has their wine story, but I feel like wine doesn't age like that. We don't have to age. We don't age out of wine. A lot of careers you age out of. Wine, the longer you live, the better you get at it. And to me, that's kind of cool. Yeah.
Talked earlier about the need to break the rules in wine.
Yeah.
So tell me about, you obviously talked earlier about progress you've seen. What are the rules that still need to be broken? What is the progress you still want to see? What still needs to happen in the wine industry? I know it's a big question.
Okay, do we have the time? I want to see wine come back to the community. And also, what wine needs to have is fun. Wine sometimes can be like watching paint dry. And I am always like, when we get together, everybody's laughing. No one shows this. No one shows any fun in a wine ad. Every time I see a wine ad in a magazine, I'm like, who shot this? Why did you put this here? I would love to see literally a fabulous bottle of wine, red Solo cup, and people bowling, right? I love a great glass. I love a beautiful wine glass. I am clumsy at home. I am breaking nice glasses. There's a time and a place for them. At a backyard barbecue, I'm pouring magnums and I'm drinking Solo cups. I want to see that literally in marketing. And that's what, we gotta get into fun. We make wine so serious. It's already serious because there's laws and rules and regulations, and there's words like terroir, and there's words like, élevage and assemblage and all that. Okay, that's cool. That's great. Love it. How can we have fun? Why don't we show it as an everyday thing? I really think wine can learn from the spirits industry of marketing. I hate to say it, the spirits industry is really good at that. You might not even want to drink that vodka, but you see it on TV and everybody looks happy. You're like, maybe next time I'll go buy it. Our ads are like, no, stop, make it fun. Have a dance party. I remember doing a silent disco wine tasting. And I thought, everybody's there bopping the music. You're going around in these tables. Sell that. Sell it. Make it an event. Guarantee you that's fun. You could do it by genre of music, put on a yacht rock playlist or mix it with the 80s or 90s hip hop. Everybody's there, but then, because that changes how we look at the wine as well, right? We need more of those. We need the stringency of it has to go. And I understand there's a time and a place for technical things, and that's also great, but there's a time just to let loose, and we just need that actually in marketing.
What about on the diversity and inclusivity side? What are the next steps you want to see there?
I would like to see more people in leadership roles. At the top of the distributor chain, top of importation chain, like the people that really at the C-suite level making those kind of decisions. And that means somebody has to take a chance on somebody, right? It's not always, sometimes there's learning on the job. And we need that too as well. But that top leadership, yeah, especially at the big distributors that are at the top of the 3-tier system. That's where we need more leadership in that. We need more people of color in the C-suites, and definitely on the B2B side.
So with that said, with the kind of the needing to see more leadership, I'm curious how you've seen, I guess, diverse interests in wine. Have you seen more minorities interested?
Oh, yes.
Okay. How is that? What is the next step there?
I think it is, we're in the celebrity culture, so I have to go there. We're in the celebrity culture. A lot of celebrities have gotten people into wine that probably wouldn't be looking into wine. Not necessarily that they have their own wine, yes, you have the celebrity brand, but I'm talking to people of color. Like for me, I love seeing what LeBron James is drinking. I want to see what LeBron James is drinking. I want to see what Marjorie Harvey is drinking. I want to see what Magic and Cookie are drinking on their vacation. What social media has done to introduce wine has been great, but it's not coming from our side of the business as much. It's coming from me, like I said, looking at celebrities, looking at people drinking, and you seeing more people of color are so curious about it because there's so many steps now. Like, I just pick up my phone and I can find a wine person that looks like me, that either works in it or drinking it, and I think that is we give social media a bad rap, but it has brought a lot of people together in wine. Because I'm usually on social media looking, I want to see what my friends are drinking, just like a lot of people. They're like, what are you drinking? Like, I'm sure it's an easy way to see it, right? And so with that, we have a lot of new drinkers of all ages. I lead food and wine trips around the world, and my group is 20 to like 80, right? I take people to Champagne, and I'm introducing, and they're like, oh, I thought I didn't like Champagne, but now I'm exposed to all these different kinds, so they take that back to their community. And then their community now has a different expansion of what wine is. So I know, to me, social media has changed how people drink wine. And that's a blessing, right? And I get a lot of messages like, hey, I think I'm going to this wine store, or I'm looking for this wine. Can you help me find it? And I like that too, because I have friends that work in the business and their friends are asking them the same question. And that's really where I see the change is in social media. Because it's not going anywhere. We might as well embrace it. It's not going anywhere. It's like the two-sided devil. It's like the blessed and the curse. So I'm like, okay. But yeah, I find like on social media, I see a lot of younger drinkers. Younger drinkers, older drinkers, new drinkers. People are like, yeah, I was in my cocktail phase and my palate changed. And I'm learning, and then I started with Prosecco, and then now I'm going here, and now I'm going there. I'm like, oh, this is so great. So to see other people sharing it, right? They keep sharing it. And it has changed. People are not collecting. I tell people all the time, I don't have the time. You talk about collecting, how long are we collecting? You tell me it can age for 30 years? Girl, I don't have the time. I'm not doing that. What are we drinking now? What are we drinking the next week and next year? I don't worry about 20 years. Yeah, my cellar it gets drunk. It gets drunk, like all the time. Friends come over, how you doing? And for no reason. And that goes back to community, right? Treating wine not as a commodity for a special occasion, treating it as an everyday beverage. And there's a whole big movement right now, anti-alcohol, and it's like, but there's no other beverage, like I said, that brings people together like wine, and with responsibility, actually, of course, but yeah, just having fun with it, yeah.
So you talked earlier about Oregon. Obviously, you're a big fan of Oregon.
I'm a huge fan.
Tell me about getting to know Oregon, getting to know the people and the wines here, and where the industry is headed. Where do you see it going next? Okay,
first, I think Oregon can change the wine landscape of the U.S. I think, one, it's amazing food down here. Whew, food is good, right? The wines are exceptional. And also, two, yes, everybody thinks about Oregon, Chardonnay and Pinot, but a lot of the newer winemakers that are coming in, making Albarino, trying other grapes, I think that fun is where Oregon can thrive because they're not just relegated to like, we're only doing this or we're only doing that. They don't have that wind tunnel mindset. And I like that. It's a playfulness about it. I mean, one of the fun things, like for IPNC, I always go to Hazelfern, right? They do a thing called Shardy Party. They serve fried chicken in buckets. Everybody brings different wines. And if we showed more people drinking wine with fried chicken and that kind of fun experience, and yes, we still have beautiful dinners and all those things, but I just like the innovation that Oregon is doing because they're like no holds barred. And I think that they're not getting in just in that loophole or we're only this. And I think that's where they're going to thrive and they're going to show everybody else because they're not being pigeonholed. So many places around the world are just pigeonholed. Like they only can do this and they can try everything. And if it doesn't stick, then try something else. But I like that. I like to say Oregon is like Austin. Everybody's like, keep Austin weird. Oregon's kind of like that with wine. Like, I'm just, okay. I was talking to some winemaker. He's like, I think I'm going to play around with some Gewürztraminer. And I was like, Gewürz till it hurts. Let's do it. I was like, let's go. Let's go. Like, I want to taste it. Yeah. I know when I say that, my husband, he just says, like, Julia. I'm like, I know.
I think it needs to be a shirt.
Gewürz till it hurts.
I think it needs to be a shirt.
Yeah.
It would also help people pronounce it, which would be helpful.
Yeah.
I think that's. All right, so.
I can keep them coming. I can keep them coming.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you have a lot going on. You're working on a lot of different things right now. Tell me what you're looking ahead to personally, professionally. What's on the horizon that you're excited about? What have you not done yet that you want to do?
One thing I want to do is I want to create my own wine dinner experiences around the country and work with chefs to make a playful menu. Like whatever based on their location that they're known for, just turning that entire menu, flipping it on a script, and just being like, making it like a kid again, to where you used to play with your food. Let's play with your food and play with your wine. Let's do this. So that's really one thing I want to do is like go around and have these dinners that are not fancy, that everybody comes in. The dress code is jeans and flip-flops, no suits, no fancy dresses. We just go and have a meal, and like maybe it's like pizza 7 different ways. That's what I want to do. I want to create those. That's what I haven't done yet. I'm going to do my Oregon wine certification next year, so I'm excited about that. I needed a break from certifications. I'm a nerd like that. I like studying and taking tests, but I was just like, where do I want to go? I know I'm not going to be in MW. I'm not doing all that, not going that far, but I like just different locations, and I was just like, as much as I come here and love it, I was like, I might as well just like be more in depth and know more knowledge about it, just for me. And that presents it to other people. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to a generation of winemakers who are just like busting the seams and doing some weird, fun stuff and just having a good ass time doing it. And watching them thrive. I'm watching them thrive.
Last question for you. What are you proudest of so far? What is an achievement that makes you proud?
I'm proud that I'm living in a time that I can make change and I can be an influence of that change, and that literally like the saying is, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. That's what people say. I am my parents' wildest dreams. And everything they've done to get me here, God rest their souls, is that I am here because they told me I was blessed to be a blessing. That's what I'm proud of.
It's fantastic. All the questions that I have for you. Anything I didn't ask that I should have? Anything we didn't cover today that you wanted to cover?
I just think to wine people who listen to this and watch this, it is our job not to bring a new generation and a next generation or younger generation of drinkers to wine. It is our job to keep this energy and community alive. And when we do that, the drinkers will follow.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you taking the time. Welcome back to Oregon.
Yes, and I'll be back. I'll be back in 2 weeks. No, seriously, 3 weeks. I'll be back here on the 14th.
Appreciate you sharing your story with us.
You're welcome.
And we look forward to seeing much more of you in Oregon in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Rich. Thank you so much. Thank you.